So apparently we are live. Let me see if we see anybody on stream, on LinkedIn stream. Just let me check. Hi everybody. We are doing this for the first time with the live streaming for Dig Travel. So a little bit technical checks, but I think it should be okay. So I see a lot of people registered for the event. Hopefully we'll wait a little bit more till people join to share the link. Amanda, do you see the link? Just let me share it. I'll ask people in the chat. Okay, so we start getting people in. We'll wait for a minute or so. I see our friend Manolis. Hi, Manolis. And let's just wait for for people to start popping in, and then we will start with this live event. Okay, so now people are going in. I have a little bit delay notification. Hello, everyone. Okay, so thanks to everybody for joining. I see a lot of people registered, a lot of people attending. I'm really happy to see you all joining us today on this first ever Dig Travel live event. Even more, when I was browsing the attendee list, I think vast majority, more than 80% of you are from the airline industry. So I'm really happy that we reached out to the right audience. So this is really a great group. And I see everybody introducing in the chat. So if you have any questions during the chat, just write it there. Before we start talking about airline digital trends, skills, jobs, let me introduce our panel. You can see them in small windows, but then they will be on stage. So we will talk about airline digital trends with our 4 academy mentors, airline digital academy mentors, and one past academy participant. Each of these people has unique background. That's why I invited them. Each is an expert in one area. Mike, he has more than 20 years of experience of building airline digital products. Amanda is an UX and research expert and one of the most popular UX teachers on LinkedIn. Boštjan is one of the best data and analytics experts I know. So Mike and Amanda and Boštjan, together with myself, are also mentors in our Airline Digital Academy. And then we have Sarah. She's an airline digital product manager, and she's past academy participant, and she will talk about her job and how it changed over the past 12 months in regards to skills and job requirements. So each of them will talk about their area. So I think when we'll put all these things together, it will give you a good overview of the latest digital trends and when the things with skills are going. Again, if you have any questions about for any of the panel participants, just leave them in the comment and we'll try to address them during the chat. If not, I will try to make sure we address them after the event and leave it in the event chat and in event posts. So let me start with a short intro. As the pandemic hit our industry, we started with 2 initiatives to help airline digital pros here at Dig Travel. First one is the Airline Digital Academy, where we teach about modern digital skills. And the second one, the one that I want to talk to you about today, is Airline Digital Job Board. where we consolidate all airline jobs in one place, and it's a non-profit initiative with one goal: to help airlines who are looking for talent on one side, and to connect them to our audience of more than 5,000 airline digital pros. So we want to connect airlines and digital pros that want to do great digital work together. And what we've seen over the past 12 months is like a catch-22 situation. In the last 6 months, we listed more than 180 jobs on our board, and especially recently, I see more and more jobs on our board, so I hope this is finally a sign of recovery for our industry that really needs one. But before we get into the analysis of these 180 jobs we posted on our job board, let me talk about something else. So this catch-22 situation. And what do I mean by that is that on one hand, airline had to let go a lot of good digital people, a lot of good professionals. But on the other hand, digital transformation, the pressure is on for airlines to do new and better digital solutions. So we see airlines working hard on touchless, self-servicing digital products and on increasing direct sales. But how does this reflect in airline jobs and in skills? How can we change and how can we do more on the digital fronts? How can airlines do more on the digital fronts with less people? This question, this dilemma, was basically what made me think about the concept I first saw in one of my favorite books I read in the last year, and it's a business book or a lifestyle book called Range. Those who know me well, also from the academy, you know I love talking about Range, because Range, the concept of generalist versus specialist, is from this book. And in that book, the author, David Epstein, analyzes for what kind of roles, so more broad generalist skill set is suited, and on the other hand, for what challenges we need a specialized, more narrow skills and experience. For me personally, and also the situation where airlines are now, this is a very interesting question, and I think it's a challenge for airlines that they need to think about as we plan the recovery. In this book, Epstein also talks about the concepts of kind and vacant environments. A kind environment is one where all the information is available. So you don't have to search for it, patterns repeat, the possible situations are constrained, so you will see the same sort of situations over and over. And feedback on everything you do is both immediate and 100% accurate. For example, chess, when you have a chessboard with a set of rules, and golf are example of kind environments. On the other hand, in the vacant environment, not all information is available when you have to make a decision. So typically you're dealing with dynamic situations that involve other people and judgments, and feedback is not automatic. And when you do have feedback, it may be partial and it may be inaccurate. Boštjan, who is our data science expert, will talk about machine learning and what kind of environments and the challenges, for example, artificial AI and machine learning can solve. But for now, think about what kind of environment do you think the airline and travel industry is in currently? I wouldn't say definitely not a kind one, right? And when you think about your skills, so your future skills, your future roles, or the skill sets for your team, if you are a manager of, let's say, digital or any other department, think about the concept of range and in what kind of environment you'll work in and what kind of challenges you'll try to solve. Will you work on specialized tasks? Or will you work on building new solutions, do complex e-commerce or ancillary revenue scenarios? We'll try to generate new revenue streams. So this is something that I think you need to think about when you think about your future digital skill set or any other skill set in your life. And David Epstein's concept of kind versus vacant environment and what kind of skills do we need to succeed in them definitely made me personally think about airline digital skills. Especially it made me think about airline digital retailing, because one of the airline trends that I saw in the last 6 to 12 months is the emergence of digital revenue teams and roles. Airlines, what I see and what I hear from professionals and what we see in our service, want to use this crisis to transform this business model, their business model. They want to sell more direct via own direct digital channels. They want to generate more ancillary revenue. So the term that we came up, or that we invented in the industry, is the term of digital revenue. But what exactly is a digital revenue? In my opinion, it's a mix of several things. On one side, it's a mix of airlines working on building your own digital sales. So this means e-commerce digital sales team. It's a mix of developing new products and new revenue streams, which is typically ancillary and digital product teams. Then you need upselling and cross-selling, which is basically ancillary and digital marketing teams. You also need to measure, test, optimize, work on your UX, which is basically digital optimization teams. And then at the end, what is very important and what you will see later in our roles in very high demand is leveraging your data and analytics for better targeting and personalization. So if I go back to concepts range from David Epstein, digital retailing is definitely a complex challenge that I think requires a broad skill set. Definitely not a kind environment. And to be good at digital retailing, you need so-called T-shape skills, T-shape skill set. If you will Google T-shape marketing, you will find a lot of models, and we try to develop this T-shape airline digital retailing skills framework for airlines to look at and see what kind of skills are needed. So basically, to be a T-shaped marketer, you need to have a mix of broad general knowledge, so sound fundamentals. These are the things that you see here on top, airline industry know-how in different areas. Then you will need a broad knowledge of digital marketing skills, the middle layer, and the bottom layer, digital optimization, how you really measure and optimize and innovate with new digital products. Then you can be an expert, or you can build deep expertise in one of the areas. But what I think, to solve complex problems, you need this broad understanding, you need this range that David Epstein is talking about. And the interesting thing is, and here is the analysis that I promised to you of 180 jobs on our job boards. When we analyze more than these 180 jobs and job descriptions on our job board, we see the digital skills needed for digital retailing are in high demand. What you will see, the data and analytics are basically the most popular and the most sought after skills by airlines. Boštjan will talk about that and why they are in such high demand and what are the key trends there, because he works on analytics and data and BI and artificial intelligence projects in his daily job. The next two most popular categories, or three, are digital marketing, digital product, digital development, and UX. I hope Mike will talk a lot about digital product and skill set needed there, and Amanda can address things regarding the UX and research and all kinds of UX research. And at the end, Sarah will tell from her airline job perspective, how does this look in practice? So to end this short intro, let me go back to our airline digital retailing framework. If you are an individual, an airline professional, think about what kind of work you want to do. Or if you are looking to get back into the industry, because I see many people that lost jobs want to go back because it's really exciting industry to work in, our airline industry. So think about what kind of work you want to do and what kind of problems you will want to solve. Then you will understand if you need more narrow and specialized skills, for example, being a developer with very specific skill set, or will you work on more complex challenges where you will need more broad know-how in many areas. Again, similarly, if you're an airline leader, a digital leader, e-commerce leader, product leader, think about the makeup of your team. Think about the setup of your team, what you want in-house, what skill set you want for your team, and think about the concept of range. Because regardless of your setup, I think you will need people with broad know-how that can solve complex problems. If not, if you don't have such people, think about how you can develop them. Prior to this event, we got questions I saw in our chat from revenue management people, and they ask us, or Bostian, will they need to become data scientists now? Do they need to know R, Python, ClickSense, Tableau? And Bostian will talk about that. But I think it goes back to, okay, will you work on more broad problems and you need to know where can you apply these skills, or you want to be a specialist who uses these skills to code, to deliver solutions. Similarly, in our Airline Digital Academy, we teach about how to increase conversion on your airline websites, how to do digital optimization, how to build great airline digital products, and how to do A/B testing, analytics, UX research. And we try to give you high-level overview of all these areas, because this way you can get a broad knowledge, a broad overview of all areas and how they are connected. We also discussed how they are connected to digital marketing, to revenue management. Then if you want to specialize, I don't know, in A/B testing or in analytics, you can certainly do so, but you will be much better equipped, even in a specialized roles, if you understand the big picture. Just to end, I read a recent research by my friend and fellow airline researcher, Henry Hertevelt, where he said airline people say how the crisis has made them move faster, less long decision-making and planning sessions, being more agile, that the mindset of airlines, I think I read this quote in his paper, everybody rolled up their sleeves and said, let's be scrappy. So this is great in my opinion, but to be like that, airlines will need to have people with range, with end-to-end understanding of areas of our digital retailing framework and how to connect them. So now, after this intro, let me kick off the discussion with our great guests and let them talk about different areas. So if I go back, they are each expert in one of these areas, and they will talk about the trends they see in their areas and in their areas of expertise and how they are connected. Okay, let me end screen share. Okay, so Mike, let me start with you. You are, I think, the most experienced from all 5 of us in the airline world. You work on digital product, digital development, building solutions for the last 20 years. What has changed?
If this is a good thing or a bad thing, but okay.
I think it's good. A lot of skills and experience, a lot of range. So what do you see change in the last 6 months?
Man, that's a good question. I think you're right in a lot of ways that COVID has really made people stop and think. I believe that there are many airlines that are looking to, sort of reset and readdress how they, survive in this new world. And I think that most of them the good thing about all of the jobs you just presented is that all of those jobs are extremely important to the future of airlines, probably more, just as important as, pilots and mechanics and things like that. But, I think when it comes to airline retailing, it takes all of those components that you were showing to be successful. And so I do believe that your job board is a direct representation of airlines understanding the pieces and the people they need, the team they need to assemble in order to be successful. I think that there's, going to be a lot more emphasis. We've seen it over the last year in self-servicing technologies. technologies that allow people to take things into their own hands digitally. You know, if nothing else, being able to modify and cancel trips easily without having to call someone, being able to use digital vouchers and things like that. I also think, and we talk about this in the Airline Academy, one of the tools that we use a lot is customer journey mapping.
Yeah, that's always the most popular, let's say, skill set that I see airline people are more excited, the most excited to learn and to be good at.
Exactly, and I think most people think that this is a UX exercise, but it can be much more than that, because when you lay out the customer journey, I mean a real customer journey from end to end, and you have 200 plus, you know, digital touch points, you're going to learn that that customer journey is the responsibility in terms of an airline in probably about 8 different silos, different people who are responsible for different areas. And really what it does is a customer journey map, besides the UX piece of it, it shows you how you need to organize internally and have the right positions in place to be able to meet the customer demands across, you know, that full journey. And so I think airlines still have a lot to learn when it comes to embracing the full customer journey. A lot of times, like your chart was showing, they focus on the marketing side of it. Then they have the transactional side, which is kind of like the internet booking engine. And then maybe they have it divided into like ancillary revenue. And then maybe they have people that are in charge of like departure control systems and things like that. But in order for them ultimately to be successful, they have to flatten that out and learn how the interconnected parts, you know, really work together. And I do believe we're seeing more of that, you know, during COVID. The other I would just say on the product side of things is just that from a product perspective, in order to design successful airline products, not only do you have to have, you know, the knowledge of how the inner working technologies work, you know, behind airlines. There's a lot of legacy technology there, and Amanda can talk about the UX piece all she wants, but I've learned as a UX person who joined the airline industry, if you don't understand the legacy PSS systems, the IBEs, departure control systems, and how all of that stuff works, you can design the most beautiful user experience possible, but no one's ever going to build it because they're going to tell you it can't be possible. And so data, analytics, all of those things are extremely important, and they're not just important once or, you know, every 3 years when you decide to redo something. They're important all the time, continuously. Because with COVID and the customer journey, things are always changing. And now customers, you know, demand even more than they did before. And, you know, it's going to take a lot to get them, you know, back to travel, and digital plays a huge piece of that.
So just to summarize before I move to Amanda and challenge her with that UX part is, in terms of digital product, let me try to share the screen back just let me. Okay. So in terms of digital product and the roles that we see here from digital development and digital product and UX, you say in your opinion that most are now focused on this servicing part, self-servicing, creating touchless, contactless digital journey, and less are on the retailing side. Or
well, I would say that self-servicing, the managed trip piece of it, to allow people to manage their own trip after a booking is a big piece of what we see. I would also see airlines obviously trying to save money. So a cost savings, shifting their distribution from typical, you know, online travel agents more to direct bookings. And so you may see a lot of positions, you know, related to shifting indirect to direct through NDC and, you know, other tools like that. But it's all about putting more in the hands of the customer for sure, and retailing in new ways. So the ways that airlines have been selling their products, I think it's changing. And I think that airlines are looking for new ways to sell these products in better ways to customers that have more flexibility and allow them to really buy what they want to buy and then change it how they want to change it, when they want to change it. You know, and that's important. I think all of these positions on here are important, but for example, the digital product position, you know, the digital product position really can't exist without data analytics, digital UX, all of the data from all of these, IT and architecture. That has to combine all of these pieces into one. And really from a digital marketing e-commerce perspective, you can't really separate marketing from e-commerce. Those people have to work hand in hand together. And so making this cohesive is the most important piece of this, that and the understanding of how you're all going to work together.
This is what we see a lot of time, either in academy or when we work hands-on with airlines, is we teach people you need to do testing, optimization, innovation, try new things, but then they're limited by the digital product and development. And like you said, either the legacy ties in or there are different silos, different agendas, how fast to move on the development side.
Yeah, and I think you've seen it in surveys that I've done, you've done, everyone else has done. And if you ask airlines what is holding them back from being able to do what they want on the digital retailing side, they typically say legacy technology, and it's legacy airline technology that typically keeps you from being able to extend and do the things in the digital space. And I know this is like a small example, but, when you go to buy a pair of shoes or you go to, buy a product on Amazon, you don't have to enter your who's buying all of that stuff before you go shopping. Yet why at an airline website, when you go in, do you have to enter all your traveler details before they show you pricing for ancillary? This is some antiquated system that people came up with 20 years ago to support a PSS, and it has nothing to do with digital retailing. So just because there's this PSS requirement to enter all the passenger details doesn't mean that should be reflected onto the retailing experience. And so that's just one example where it's very easy to show, customers the pricing of ancillaries at the same time they're buying, looking at the prices for the flight. Same thing with the seat map. We wait till we get to the ancillary page 5-6 steps into the flow. But at COVID, people want to know if their flight has a lot of passengers on it. Is it crowded? Is it not crowded? If there's 2 flights and one of them is less full, I may want to take that one, but I want to see the seat map immediately.
Let me stop you here, Mike. Amanda.
I'm just getting passionate now, is talking.
Yeah, no.
Coffee kicked in.
So let me Amanda, 2 questions for you.
Sure.
We see that UX and UX research and roles are all, it surprised me that there are so many or that they are so popular. And I would like to ask you 2 things. First, why do you think it's important to have these skills in-house or to have these skills within your team? And the second question is, how has doing UX and especially research changed the last 12 months? Because people are telling me I can't go to the airport anymore, I cannot bring users in. So tell me, are there any new skills that are needed there?
Yeah, for sure. So let me just begin by saying I agree with all of what Mike has said. So I am a researcher, and so while I sort of represent the UX space, I am 100% in favor of researching across the board and working with dev teams and everybody knows this. There is so much legacy kind of back end stuff that we have to work with. But to Mike's point, just because that's what we have to work with doesn't mean the customers or the travelers need to know that stuff. So I think that the reason that there's such a boon in UX research roles is, well, I think there's 2 reasons actually. I think the first is that COVID really forced people who maybe had an okay business model or a good enough strategy for making things easy enough, or honestly, they had good enough flights or good enough business patterns that they didn't really have to pay that much attention to what people really wanted or needed, or they thought that they knew. And COVID really made them realize that, like, oh, even if we knew what they wanted before, now we have no idea. And that's one of the things I always talk about with clients and people that I teach, is that the best thing about UX research is that you don't have to know everything. You just have to have the skill set to go find out. And especially in the last year, people's outlooks are changing really rapidly. So I live in the southeast of the United States, where a month ago, everything was still pretty much all the way on lockdown. This week, it seems like about half the people that I know have just gotten their second COVID shot and are starting to think about travel. I did too. Yeah, I did too. And so I think that with UX research, part of the thing is that people are realizing that, like, oh, perception is changing really fast. Plans are changing really quickly, and we don't have a way to keep up with that. We can't rely on old models and old expected behavior to make predictions about the future, because I don't know about you, but nothing about my life is the same as it was 12 months ago, and certainly not 18 months ago. And while I think that nobody knows exactly what the future is, I have heard from all kinds of different conversations, all sorts of different interactions that I've had, that whatever the new normal is, it's not going to be the same as the old normal. And so I think that, people are really looking to UX research because it finally really kind of forced everybody to say, we don't know, and we need a way to stay in touch with people. We need to make sure that we are making decisions based on real user input and based on what's really happening now. And that might be different, almost certainly is different from 6 months ago. And it's probably going to change again a lot in the next couple of months. And so it's also, I think one of the reasons that it's becoming more popular also is that it's not really any longer as viable, especially in the airline industry, to say, we're going to hire an outside firm like once a year to do some big audit of our tools. It's like, we need to be doing quick, iterative stuff all the time to keep up with the changing pace of, and so with that, it's a nice segue into your second question about skill set, which is that something I have been practicing, preaching for a long time, but I know that everybody in the UX research space has, being quick and agile, not being super precious about methods, and looking for ways to be flexible with in-person and remote research. So I don't think that in-person research is ever going to totally go away. I think there are some things that you can't ever duplicate remotely. But I would much, much, much rather make product and UX decisions based on a little bit of feedback from a remote study and do, like 5 quick studies in a row than wait until it was possible to do in-person research again. And so I think that for those of us in UX research, or even just those of us are, even interested in talking to users, I think what really has changed in the last year is the focus on, I don't want to say agility because I don't mean capital A agile necessarily, but I mean agility in terms of being flexible, making sure you can do things quickly, analyzing just enough, researching just enough, making sure that you're answering the big questions without introducing a lot of additional process. And kind of, I think for researchers in particular, being able to have the skill set to say, okay, this is something that we could probably pretty much answer with this quick and dirty method. Here's something we really need to take a bigger look at. This needs to be a bigger set of conversation. It's really that skill set of not just, let's just run everything through an A/B test, or let's just run everything through a remote usability task, but really having the expertise to figure out what kind of thing you need to do to answer what questions and help prioritize those questions. And then also to the other side of it that I think gets sometimes overlooked is, what do we do with all that information? How do you translate that into business decisions, product decisions? At least in the roles that I play, I'm really much less concerned about the individual color scheme or like the interaction of one button or another. And I'm much more concerned with the overall direction. And so not just the UX of the mobile app to change your flight or whatever, but the overall direction. So okay. I think those things are, and I don't think that's specific to the airline industry, but I think it is extra pronounced because we've had a tough year.
Yeah. One question, Amanda, because you said that I think it's very important that this, I think we will talk with Sarah later. And I posted this question because we are talking about Agile, and I said in the intro that research shows that airlines are now maybe leaner, less people, trying to do more faster, more from traditional silos to agile. And you said that, okay, research is really important, UX research analysis, to do it more frequently instead of once time a year hire a company. And this is something that we also talk about in our academy, how to embed UX into agile methodology and agile teams. Do you see this happening in practice, or it's still just theory?
It depends. I think that a lot of people would like to do it. I think a lot of people struggle with how. I teach a whole class about how, because it's complicated. But one of the good and bad things about Agile is that there is no one right answer. You have to look at the way your teams are structured, the way your organization is structured, the individual people on those teams and what their skill sets are. I kind of hate the, every UXer is a snowflake. They're all a little bit different. Like, I don't really love that, but it's true that everybody has, and not just UXers, like everybody in digital has a little bit of different experience and a little bit of different something. And so I am all for people being generalists, but also, and I think somebody brought this up in the comments. I can't quite find it, but there's different kinds of generalists also, right? Like, I'm a research generalist in that I do market research and product research and design research and user research. You could be a aviation generalist where you've had a bunch of different roles within the airline industry. You could be there's lots of different ways that you can be general. And so anyway, I think that makes it tough for groups to know how to bring research in to their Agile teams. I'm going to keep recommending it. I've recommended it for years. I think it's a good idea. I know that it's tough, especially when budgets are tight. That is often actually, and one thing that I tell people all the time is, even if you can't have a full-time researcher dedicated to your team, if you can hire someone who can help you figure out sort of the what to do and when and kind of oversee things, and then you can teach the people on the teams to execute some of the research. That is a model that I've seen work really well.
Maybe if I just interrupt you here, I think
sure.
Here is, I think, where this connection between generalist and specialist knowledge, at least in my opinion, is important. So of course, you are not supposed to be, let's say, airline digital product e-commerce person, an expert in UX research. But I think part of this broad umbrella of skills is that he needs to know why is it used for, what kind of types are there, so he can go out and find a specialist to help him solve certain tasks. So this, I think, it's part of this generalist or multidisciplinary people that know how all this fits together, how research fits together into agile development, for example. So this is my opinion, because where you need these people with broader skill set that they can then hire or embed specialists into their teams.
Iztok, just to add to it is, I've noticed in the chat here, Stephen Ford is commenting. Stephen is a perfect example of someone who started out as a developer, and then he started doing UX, and then he became a product person. And along the way, he learned a lot about airlines. And so one of the things I would add is, it's okay, I think, for people to specialize, but I prefer to hire people who are specializing, who have had maybe been a generalist before and learned little pieces along the way. So, because I think they can specialize even better when they understand other people's roles. And when you understand the other roles and how things come together, you may be better at doing your job today, even though it's more specialized today. And just to add to what Amanda said as well, I think the key thing here is that with UX and digital products, it's like, everything is moving extremely fast. And so you must keep doing it over and over. It's not a one-time a year thing. It's an all the time thing. So no matter if you have small budgets or what, you have to find a way to keep it going.
Okay, good comments. I will share my screen again because I want to talk to Boštjan and Sarah now. So just let me show again. Boštjan, one of the things that we see with data and analytics, first of all, that it's the most popular area, of the most in-demand area on our job board. And then the second thing that I see a trend, and this what was the questions, is how to embed these advanced analytic skills into areas like revenue management and pricing, how to be more agile with external demand analysis, how we need to be able to process different demand data sources now, because all our history, maybe our specialized revenue management and planning knowledge is irrelevant. Now we need to be agile and trying to figure out of the new demand. So to me, I would like you to talk a little bit about how to become this, and first of all, why there is such a boom of data and analytics roles. Do you see also when you work in other industries or when you talk to other people? Unmute, Boštjan. Still on mute. Okay, maybe we lost Boštjan. He'll come back. Let me talk to Sarah then, and we'll come back to analytics. Sarah,
Yeah.
how does all this stuff look from the airline person working on digital product? We talk about
it's been
before.
really interesting here what Mike and Amanda, what they said, and I totally agree with with the information they shared. For us, coming from an airline, actually, we had started to adopt Agile just before the pandemic. And the pandemic completely accelerated that Agile adoption. We had an Agile release train, and we had started to slowly move from a waterfall to more Agile. But when the pandemic hit, and I recall last year around April when the whole world was in lockdown, just 2 weeks before that, we had concluded our PI planning and then found ourselves in a completely new reality. And had to replan our PI planning. And the beauty of Agile is it enables you to do that. You're able to pivot quickly. And I think that's the huge interest that airlines have now to adopt Agile. They're no longer locking themselves in a 12-month plan or a 6-month plan. Nobody knows what's going to happen next week. And so in terms of relating that back to jobs, we've had a huge surge in interest in having product owners, traditional project managers becoming scrum masters, lots of training happening in our airline. And even though we've not been having a lot of passengers on our planes, there's a lot of work going in the digital space. And there's a lot of trying to transform people's skill set from what was traditional into this new Agile world. And then I also refer to what Mike said in terms of, architects, testers. The train, because it is a train, it runs on all these roles and responsibilities. It's no longer just a project manager and you're outsourcing. You have agile teams, and it depends, as well as Amanda said, on your organization and how it's set up. Sometimes you have these UX, UI researchers embedded in the team. Sometimes they serve several teams, but without the specific roles, you can't run the train. So we've had the release train engineers, our specific school solution architects, testers. There's a huge, in our area, need for testers as well. As our business downsize, they're no longer able to support our high demand for UAT, but we still want to roll out features quickly. And so we need them to be tested. So there's a whole lot of things that we're exposed to. And that we've experienced. So there, as you said, we've lost a lot of roles in the airline industry, but I think there is a huge demand now, especially in the digital space, because self-servicing, our mobile app development, personalization, none of that is slowing down. It's all picking up, and we're trying to address the customer's needs and be able to cater to them and bring them to our direct channels. And we want, for example, our app to be the companion of the customer, to be with them everywhere they go, to win them on that forefront.
Yeah. Sarah, we worked together in our Airline Digital Academy, and we worked more or less on this. Let's say we went through this bottom layer of our whole process. We tried to understand where the industry is going, how digital analytics work, how UX research work, how you do customer journey mapping. So it's not specialized, but you try to get this overview of all this knowledge. Do you believe in this concept, let's say, of range? Do you think it added to you being more better in then going back to your digital product role and understanding all the pieces and how they fit together? Do you think this broad skill set helped you?
For sure. I think that this is essential. And I think when you work in the airline industry, you kind of need to be a generalist in the fact that you need to know what the different departments are doing and, understand. For example, I work completely with digital touchpoints. And as Mike explained, our, airlines kind of separate e-commerce from web, from, marketing, etc. And so while I work on the website, I have colleagues working on the booking engine, but I'm constantly interacting with them. And I need to have that general awareness of what they do in order to be able to serve the customer better. Because the customer on the outside only sees the airline website. They don't see it as the broken fragments that we make it into. And so we kind of need to have that overall view. And that's one of the things as well where silos have got broken because of the pandemic, because we had to push things out faster and people can no longer hide in their little silo for 6 months and not deliver anything. You needed to push things quicker and understand what everybody does. But having said that, I think specialists are still needed in the data analytics space, in the UI UX space, in the architecture space. But you need those individuals that kind of glue everything together. And I think that's the product role, kind of the product and the Scrum Master role that kind of glue the team together with their generalist, knowledge and bringing those specialist areas
to tackle the complex problems that we talked about, right? Yeah. Okay, Boštjan, can we hear you now?
Hopefully.
Hopefully, thank God. Yeah. So, data, the dreaded data and analytics. Everybody is talking data is new oil. Why is is there really such a boom in analytics now?
It is, of course, but it's not something that is specific to the airline industry, of course. Although airline industry historically has been very much invested in the data, and we have like a lot of data from the operations perspective, passenger perspective. So some of it is regulation, but the thing is, like, we have lots of data. On the other hand, we have customers that know that they have a lot of data and they expect us to do something with that data, of course, right? And also, the airline industry now is so complex, so competitive that more understanding about the patterns, events, passengers is needed like now. We can't wait for somebody to produce reports and give us insights like in a week, in a month, when we won't need them anymore. And so a lot of strategies are now aligning with business intelligence and artificial intelligence. And everybody is saying that we have an AI strategy. And it's really interesting. I saw on research by MIT looking at various industries, and approximately 60% of all companies say that they either have the strategy, they have a pilot, they do something with it. Even more say that they know how to unlock the value through AI. But on the other hand, the situation is that they say 10% are the companies that can actually see some financial benefits from that. So it's a gap between those two, and airlines, the same as other companies, are trying to address this gap by hiring people in the analytics area. So they say, we don't have enough skills, or the skills are outdated, we need to hire more people. The problem that the
data scientists. We see a lot of data scientist jobs.
That is exactly what I was getting to. Is now we see a lot of very specialized roles, and now we get to that topic that we were talking about today. So a lot of very specialized roles that by themselves they won't solve any issue that airlines have, or at least they won't advance the airline through the data strategy. The reason for that is that if you have a data scientist that has a lot of knowledge in mathematics, statistics, model building, if they don't know how to connect that knowledge to the domain knowledge, so to connect with the experts from the domain perspective, how to integrate the results and the exploratory analysis in their day-to-day operations, then you won't get any, or at least you won't get the benefits that you're seeking to get. So what I'm seeing, what I would always suggest is that we need to invest into analytics and data understanding skills across the board. So as we were saying, that you can be a specialist or a generalist within an area or in general, everybody in every department needs to have data analytics skills. They don't need to be data scientists, but they need to know the basics like exploration of the data, visualization of the data, design of the KPI or the AKR system. So they need to have this range. And looking at the listings for the jobs that you have on the website, approximately 1/3 is for data scientists. And then we have like this role that most often is called the manager. And that manager is supposed to be connecting data scientists to the experts from the domain field. But it doesn't work if this is just like you have one person in the department who knows that connection. You need to have that embedded like on both sides. So the domain experts need to have analytics experience, not very deep, but still. And on the other hand, you need to have like specialists in analytics that have the experience enough to connect that.
Boštjan, if I ask you concretely, because this was a question from somebody in our event comments, revenue management person, do I have to now know data science, R, Tableau? How do you look at that? No?
No, I don't think so. I don't believe that everybody should know everything. You can't do that. But you need to know enough to have a proper discussion with the specialist. You need to know enough that you know what is possible, what has been done in the other departments or in other airlines. But you do not need to start studying Python, R, because then you can do that all the time. So you still need to figure out what is your contribution to this overall value mix, right? And this general knowledge, the broad knowledge in the Wicked environment that, as you're describing it, requires you to know enough to be competent to have these discussions and to drive the development of the propositions that they have.
Yeah, because this is something, like you said, this is what I saw as well when we are studying these roles. A lot of data roles, but vast majority is very specialized. So where I think the gap is, and what was Boštjan telling is this understanding of how we can use all this specialized knowledge to solve concrete business problems, and this gap that you are telling that 60% of people are doing it, some sort of, let's say, data advanced projects, but only 10% see value. So we need to close this gap.
Yes, and the reason for that is exactly what I was saying. Everybody's playing with AI because they have hired data scientists, and data scientists love to play with their models, of course. But they don't have the vision or the passion to drive that forward and to align the whole organization along this new approach. So for that, you need enough people with skills about analytics and some level of AI, machine learning, robotics, on higher levels of organization, right? So not just data scientists. So you can't solve your problems just by hiring data scientists.
Okay. Other guys, Mike, Sarah, how do you see these challenges in your fields? I see, Mike, for example, in product, that before the pandemic, a lot of airlines were building huge development teams, but we still didn't see the uplift in them such acceleration of new digital solutions? Did you see the similar gap there?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to building, internal teams, you've heard these airlines start to talk about, building these digital labs and other things. But I think with COVID, we've seen a lot of them reverse that or start to move back out of that. And as you said, I think it depends on the airline. I think keeping the UX, the product strategy, the research in-house, from my perspective, is actually more important than the development.
Yeah.
If I was building an airline, team from scratch, I would want to know the details of the research, where I'm going, what my vision is, and to have the product fully defined and be agile. And then I would like to have a development partner to help me with that, because I see the strategy in the UX always happening, whereas the development, you may have periods where you're not developing all the time.
Yeah. And you always have to have a product roadmap. 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, and it's getting changed day by day.
Yep.
But yeah, it's key.
Okay. Let me see if we have any questions from the panel. We see some comments about the same generalist, specialist roles. So we see the connection between product owners and product managers. And sometimes, like Steven said, sometimes there is too much expectation. And this is something that I think, Amanda, you're talking with UX.
What I would comment on that one is, because I come from a product background, is we don't want them to be necessarily data scientists, but because the product owner owns the vision of where the product is going, they need to have that overview of what's happening in your digital space, what's happening in your, let's say, if you own the web space, you kind of need to go in and know the data and on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, and not wait for someone to feed that to you, because then you can know, oh, that feature that I rolled out didn't really work, I need to pivot, or I need to talk to my UI UX researcher to understand how to make it better. And I think that's what's really meant when companies are trying to hire POPM with that data interest, or that kind of skill set. Obviously not going in and building data reports from scratch like a data scientist would, but being having that understanding.
Yeah, I'd actually add to what Sarah was saying, is that there's a lot of different types of data. And a lot of the data that we've been talking about is data about you, the airline, the metrics that you have about your own system. But I would argue that that gives you a state of where you're at, but it doesn't necessarily give you insight to where your competitors are. And so there's also competitive data that needs to be brought in by, I tell people this all the time, and people think I'm, crazy sometimes about this, but it's like, people should be doing unmoderated user testing on the sites that you think are performing well. So if you're an airline and you think airlines A, B, and C are doing the best, don't test your own websites, test your competitive sites. If you see, an airline do something innovative, do unmoderated user testing and see what feedback you get. It may look cool, it may seem innovative, but users may not like it. So I see a lot
cool
of
and working are not the same thing.
Huh?
I said looking cool and working well are not the same thing.
Exactly. So I love to gain insights by benchmarking against other competitive airlines, not just my own data. And so I think Steven put that on here, but it's like, there's all kinds of data. You have to factor it in and give it different weights in order to figure out your strategy.
What happens on a day-to-day basis when you're in the job is you're, in the detail of what feature am I going to develop, what am I going to roll out, and it's one thing after the other. If you don't at least take in some information and some data and insights of where your digital product is going, you could completely miss the bat,
And this is something that Amanda was talking about. This is why now I think sometimes we need to stop and say and do more smaller chunks, but more frequent chunks of research, right, Amanda?
100%. And one thing that I also like to remind people of is that sometimes the best outcome of a piece of research is that you don't build something. right? Like, and I think people get so caught up to Sarah's point about like what to do next, like, or how to figure out like this one particular problem that I'm solving. And so the other thing I like to talk about is cadence of research and what kind of research, right? There's like research on the execution of a UX design that's evaluative in nature, whether that's your own or your competitors. Like, you can be testing how well something works, but it's also important to take a step back and do more of that more exploratory research on, honestly, still really a fairly regular basis, especially to the earlier point. Like, right now, context is changing super fast. Perception is changing super fast. So like, do I think everybody got a new phone and has new like digital, a new interaction with their cellular phones or mobile devices in the last 12 months? No. But do I think that people's expectations about safety and people's, to Mike's earlier point, wanting to look up the seats and see if the plane is full or not, all that kind of stuff. And I think also that a lot of this conversation, whether it's talking about POs and PMs or data, I think really what this all goes back to is that everybody needs to understand all of the inputs. And I don't have to be an expert at crunching the numbers, and I don't have to be an expert at developing the stuff. And, like, nobody has to be an expert in everything, but understanding all the different inputs and how all of that information can pull together and how all the teams can pull together. Because, like, ultimately what you're trying to do is build something that the customers like and are comfortable with, and that either saves your team money or makes you money, right? Like, that's the goal. And I think sometimes people get caught up in, well, I would do this cool new interface trick, or I want to like try out this new service component. And, kind of all of this really speaks to not just being a generalist for the sake of being a generalist, but like really collaborating with your teammates and allowing people to rely on their expertise to do whatever it is doing, but kind of ultimately in the day thinking about like, what are we doing and why? Who is it for? What do they need? What do we need? And how do we tie all of that together? And so there's lots of different like specialty expertises that go into that. But ultimately, like, all of that expertise should be moving you in the direction of getting people to book travel to go where they want to. Like, that's forgetting for a second about all the individual pieces. That's really what it is.
I see a lot of times with airlines where they have a budget to do X, Y, and Z, but they should be doing A, B, and C. And so I totally agree with what Amanda said. Sometimes saying no or pausing on something is one of the most difficult, the best decisions you can ever make. And I see more airlines building X, Y, and Z because they have a budget for it, even though it's not the right thing to be building at this time anymore. And it's a huge learning, and it takes a lot of responsibility and, to say no and to move on to something else, but even if your boss wants it. But I see that all the time.
It's a lot easier to say no. Oh yeah, it's like you're muted. I was gonna say though, it's a lot easier to say no if you have the whole team on the same board and you've got data to back it up.
Yeah,
so.
And
you would think so.
If we put all these things that we talk together, so the things that Boštjan is talking about, more looking at the data, but look for insights, not look to do science and do agile research to see what people really want in these agile loops, then I think we will build things that really fix problems and that improve user experience. And
I think I would add this, Tok, that goes along with what you're saying, is that one of the key qualities that everybody needs to have, especially somebody who works in analytics, is curiosity. And this drive to find new things, to also like question our own findings and question like what we were doing in the past. So not be afraid to be wrong, like going in this direction, trying to be agile, try to find these little nuggets that maybe don't seem a lot from the top, but like doing this constant evaluation, questioning, putting pressure like on our own past decisions. I think that's one very important aspect, and that is more important than having like Superman skills.
And I think that this is also where the beauty of Agile comes, is the concept of building an MVP. So not quickly going and building what you think that I want to copy my competitor and do the same thing, but building a small chunk and seeing how it works for you and then making incremental changes, that really changes the game in terms of how quickly you can change your positioning in terms of what you're building.
Another one that I would add is that Amanda talked a lot about research and UX, but one of the things that we see very frequently is you may have a perfect design, a perfect strategy, but somehow during the implementation process, it gets watered down and diluted to save time and energy. And if that design and strategy gets diluted by 15%, that could take away the majority of the value of that idea or that strategy. And so one of the biggest roles that you can have at a company, and really a real product owner or manager, is to ensure that the UX integrity makes it all the way through to what the customer sees and that it doesn't get diluted. If it does get diluted, a UX person should be involved to make sure that how you're evolving the UX doesn't hurt the overall vision that is what you found from the research. And this is a huge problem you see constantly in all areas and a lot in the airline travel space.
But I think this is in a nutshell. So to conclude, because we are over an hour now, I think this is a nutshell what building digital solutions or any solution is all about. It's like this loop of data, looking at data, what Boštjan does, looking at UX research, what Amanda does, looking how to build digital products that really solve and put it all together. And this is what you, Mike, and you, Sarah, are doing. So I think if I go back just to share this thing for the last time, the jobs, I really hope that we can put all these things, especially on the top, so data and analytics, digital marketing, e-commerce, digital product and development, and UX roles and ancillary roles together into this framework, connect them so that at the end that we build and develop and deliver solutions that add value. This is what we try to connect, what we try to do in our digital academy. But I think it's what if there is one thing that we came up or that we can sum it up today, is we need people that can connect these things together, see the value, and see how they use them to solve problems and deliver value at the end. And then we can use all these great specialized roles and skills like data science, like very specific UX research, like very specific analytics and development to put the solutions together. Thank you everybody for this chat. It was, to me, very interesting. I could chat for hours. We'll put this PDF in the comments. If anybody has any questions for any of the people, leave it in the event comments and I'll try to make sure we answer. And if anybody would like to work with us or learn with us about digital and building great airline digital products, about analytics UX, check our Airline Digital Academy at digintravel.com/academy. It's a micro community environment where we talk about all this stuff and we can talk about this in detail. We'll start on May 10th, so 5 modules each with one of us, and at the end we hope we'll build better airline people with range.
I was part of the first batch and it was amazing.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for
By the way,
that.
I love that comment. I think Margarita just made. UX will save airlines.
This I will quote. I will put
that.
it on. Yeah. This is the winning comment, and I think when we think about what UX is, it's all about that we put together. So thank you, guys. Thank you to everybody who attended. I hope that this session added value. It was the first time for me, so I never tried LinkedIn Live, and we'll see based on the feedback. We might repeat it in the future. It's not that hard, it seems. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thank you.
Stay safe. Sarah, bye. Everybody,
Thanks,
bye.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye, y'all.
Get your vaccine.
Bye.
Yes. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.